A lone firefly buzzes softly in the dark. Then the night falls into an unnerving silence. This is no ordinary insect. It is the Adze, a terrifying vampire from West African folklore that hunts in the guise of a harmless firefly. We are about to unmask the complete truth behind this shape-shifting predator. By the end of this, you will understand the secret powers and profound spiritual meaning hidden within this ancient myth. We will uncover how a simple insect became a symbol of deep fear and explore the shocking connection between this creature and the very essence of human vitality. What kind of stories does your own culture tell about the monsters that hide in plain sight? Deep within the lush forests of West Africa, the legend of the Adze finds its home. This story is woven into the very fabric of life for the Yu people, whose villages dot the landscapes of modern-day Ghana, Togo, and Benin. Imagine a world where the boundary between the human community and the wild is paper-thin. Small villages are encircled by an immense living wall of trees, a place where daylight surrenders quickly to a profound and absolute darkness. In such an environment, the night is not empty. It is filled with sounds, with movement, and with the tiny, blinking lights of countless fireflies. These insects are a constant presence, a natural wonder that becomes something far more sinister in the human imagination. It is within this specific cultural and environmental context that a simple insect transforms into a profound spiritual threat. The dense forest provides the perfect hiding place for a shapeshifter, and the familiar firefly offers the ideal disguise. When your world is so intimately connected to the natural realm, it is only a small step to believe that nature itself can harbor a malevolent will. The Adze is not some imported monster from a distant land. It is a creature born from the soil, the trees, and the very darkness that settles over the Yu homeland. This deep connection to place is what makes the myth so powerful and so enduring. It raises a chilling question about our own surroundings. What familiar parts of your own world could be hiding a secret more dangerous nature if you only knew how to look? As a firefly, its light is a brilliant, hypnotic crimson, a stark and unsettling contrast to the gentle greenish-yellow glow of its ordinary kin. This is no random flicker, but a deliberate, pulsing beacon that seems to pull at your attention, luring you closer into the deep shadows. Its flight produces a low, resonant hum that vibrates in your bones, a sound that feels ancient and deeply wrong. This insect form is merely its vessel for hunting, a perfect disguise that allows it to drift through the night, unseen and unsuspected. But the true horror begins after it makes a successful hunt. Once it has fed, the Adze sheds its insect shell to reveal its other, far more terrifying shape. It transforms into a gaunt humanoid figure with leathery, bat-like wings folded tightly against its back. Its limbs are unnaturally long and thin, its eyes glow with a faint red light, and its mouth is filled with sharp, needle-like teeth designed for a single, grim purpose. This is the form it uses to walk among us, to infiltrate a village by taking on the appearance of a new, unfamiliar person who keeps to the edges of the community. The real danger lies in how perfectly it can hide. You might pass this stranger in the market, noticing only a slight chill in the air or a reluctance to meet your gaze for too long. Perhaps their skin is a bit too pale, or their movements possess a subtle, insect-like twitch. They might be the quiet neighbor who only emerges at dusk, the one whose presence makes the children inexplicably nervous or the livestock restless. Its most telling weakness is an obsessive, almost compulsive desire to count small objects. A clever villager might scatter a handful of seeds or grains at a doorway, knowing the creature would be unable to resist stopping to count every single one, buying precious time for escape. So the next time you see a firefly with an unusual red glow, or meet a stranger whose behavior seems just a little off, a quiet question might surface in your mind. Are you looking at a simple insect, or are you witnessing the perfect camouflage of a predator that has evolved to wear our own shape? This transformation is not a simple trick of illusion, but a fundamental rewriting of its very substance. The process begins with a single, powerful trigger, a deep and unending hunger for what the you people call life force, the vital energy that animates every living person. When the Adze in its Firefly form finds a potential victim, isolated and vulnerable in the night, its crimson light pulses with a frantic intensity. It does not bite with a stinger, but instead lands softly upon the skin, its tiny form pressing close. Then it begins to feed, drawing out this life essence not through a physical wound, but through a spiritual one, siphoning the energy that sustains the soul. It is this act of consumption that fuels the metamorphosis. As it feeds, the insect shell becomes a translucent, glowing cocoon. The familiar firefly shape distorts, its light flickering erratically as the creature inside struggles to break free. With a sound like tearing parchment, the shell splits apart, and the humanoid figure emerges, now swollen with the stolen vitality it requires to walk in our world. This shapeshifting is a profound act of esoteric symbolism. It represents the ultimate violation of natural boundaries, a creature that exists in two states at once, neither fully insect nor fully human, but a monstrous hybrid of both. Its power speaks to a universal occult truth, that immense potential for change, for creation, and for destruction can be hidden within the most unassuming of vessels. A tiny seed holds the blueprint for a mighty tree, and a single spark can ignite a wildfire. The Adze embodies this principle in its most terrifying form, a reminder that the smallest, most common sight can conceal a reality of immense power and danger. Yet this awesome ability is not without its limits. The transformation is a cycle dictated by its hunger. After walking in its human-like form for a time, the stolen energy depletes, and the creature is compelled to return to its firefly state to hunt again. It cannot maintain its powerful, walking shape indefinitely, forever chained to the need to feed. This constant shifting reveals a core duality, a being perpetually caught between two natures, forever belonging to neither world completely. So the next time you dismiss something as small or insignificant, pause for a moment. What hidden capacity for transformation might be lying in wait, simply biding its time until the right conditions allow its true nature to emerge? That crimson light is not just a lure, it is a signal of a profound hunger. The Adze's ultimate goal is not merely to frighten, but to consume. It hunts for two essential substances, human blood and the potent life force it carries, with a terrifying preference for the youngest and most vulnerable members of a community, its children. A child's vital energy is considered purer, more potent, and less defended, making them the ideal prey for this parasitic entity. The hunt is a masterclass in stealth. Under the cover of night, the Adze in its firefly form seeks out the small gaps and cracks in a village home. It slips through a space beneath the roof or a tiny hole in a wall, its faint red glow barely noticeable in the deep shadows of a sleeping hut. It moves with an unnerving silence, drawn to the warmth and rhythmic breathing of a sleeping child. The attack itself is deceptively gentle. The firefly lands on the exposed skin of its victim, its touch as light as a falling leaf. There is no sharp bite, no immediate pain to startle the child awake. Instead, the feeding begins as a subtle draining, a siphoning of blood and soul that feels, at first, like nothing more than a faint chill or a troubling dream. The physical consequences for the victim are devastating and swift. They begin to waste away, their vitality seemingly evaporating. A once healthy and vibrant child becomes listless, pale, and weak, suffering from a mysterious illness that no healer can properly diagnose. Their appetite vanishes, their eyes lose their luster, and their body slowly deteriorates without any visible cause. This is the true horror of the Adze's feeding. It leaves a physical shell behind, a person who is present but utterly drained. But the spiritual consequences are even more terrifying. In some versions of the legend, the Adze does not just take the life force, it leaves a part of itself behind. The victim becomes spiritually hollowed out, an empty vessel that the creature can then possess and control. This possession turns the victim into a puppet, a spy for the Adze within its own community, forced to reveal its family's secrets and weaknesses for the next attack. The monster, having fed, now wears the face of its prey, creating a cycle of fear and betrayal that erodes the very trust that holds a village together. So the next time you hear of an unexplained sickness, a wasting disease that confounds modern medicine, it invites a haunting, ancient question: are we witnessing a natural ailment, or are we seeing the lingering, invisible scars of a predator that feeds in the dark, leaving its victims alive but forever emptied? The crimson glow and the stolen blood are only the surface of its hunger. A far deeper and more insidious theft is taking place, one that targets the very spark of life itself. The Adze is not merely a physical predator, it is a true psychic vampire, an energetic parasite that consumes the vitality, the ambition, and the very will of its victims. Imagine a person not just growing physically weak, but losing their passion for life. A once-driven farmer becomes listless, no longer caring for his crops. A joyful mother loses her laughter, her spirit crushed by an unseen weight. A bright child's curiosity fades into a dull apathy. This is the Adze's true signature. It feasts on the intangible energies that make us who we are, leaving behind a hollowed-out existence. This parasitic relationship extends beyond the individual, casting a shadow over the entire community. The creature is drawn to the vibrant, interconnected energy of a family unit or a thriving village. It feeds on the warmth of shared bonds, the collective joy of a celebration, and the determined spirit of people working together. When an Adze infiltrates a community, it does not just attack one person, it slowly drains the life from the social fabric itself. Neighbors grow suspicious of one another, cooperation withers, and a pervasive sense of lethargy and despair settles over the village like a fog. This concept of energetic parasitism is not unique to this West African legend. It echoes through occult traditions worldwide, from the tales of succubi and incubi that drain spiritual vigor, to modern metaphysical beliefs about energy vampires who leave you feeling exhausted after a simple conversation. The Adze is a powerful, mythological representation of this universal fear, the dread that something can attach itself to your spirit and consume your potential from the inside out. It forces us to ask a deeply personal question: have you ever encountered a person or a situation that left you feeling inexplicably drained, not just tired, but spiritually depleted? That sensation, that sudden loss of your inner light, might be the closest we come to understanding the true, chilling touch of the Adze. But the terror of the Adze does not always fly alone. It sometimes walks on two legs, in the form of a human who has chosen to harness its darkness. The relationship between this vampire Firefly and human witchcraft is a deep and tangled web, where power and corruption become inextricably linked. According to some legends, a powerful witch or sorcerer can actually capture an Adze. The method is perilous, requiring immense courage and esoteric knowledge. One must snare the creature in its Firefly form, often using a specially prepared gourd or a bag woven from certain sacred fibers, trapping it at the precise moment its crimson light dims between pulses. Once captured, the creature is not destroyed. Instead, the witch enters into a forbidden pact, a bargain for control. The Adze is subdued, sometimes through the use of powerful herbs, incantations, or symbolic bindings, and forced to serve as a familiar. This transformed Adze becomes a lethal extension of the witch's own will. No longer a random predator of the night, it is now a guided weapon, sent to target specific enemies or rival villages. The witch might command it to drain the vitality of a healthy farmer, causing his crops to fail, or to sicken the child of a political opponent, creating chaos and sorrow. In this symbiotic relationship, the witch gains immense power and influence, while the Adze is guaranteed a steady supply of the life force it craves. This dynamic explores a chilling theme, the corruption that absolute power can bring. A person who might have started as a community healer or a seeker of knowledge crosses a moral line, choosing to use a destructive force for personal gain. The Adze, in turn, corrupts its master, its constant need for feeding twisting the witch's ambitions into ever more monstrous shapes. Their pact becomes a spiral of mutual damnation, a cycle where human malice and supernatural hunger feed each other. This legend serves as a stark warning about the dangers of seeking power through forbidden channels. It asks us to consider where the line lies between using knowledge and being used by it. What would you be willing to sacrifice, and what darkness would you be willing to embrace, if it promised you control over the very forces of life and death? Against such a terrifying threat, communities did not stand defenseless. A deep and practical wisdom evolved, a collection of protective measures passed down through generations to guard against the Adze's insidious attacks. These defenses targeted the creature's known weaknesses, creating layers of security around the home and the body. One of the most common protections involved the strategic use of powerful herbs and spices. Garlic was not just a cooking ingredient, it was a potent barrier. Bunches of it were hung over doorways and windows, its strong odor believed to be deeply offensive to the creature, creating an invisible wall it would not cross. Ground pepper served a similar purpose, sometimes scattered across thresholds or even blown into the air around a sleeping child, the irritating particles acting like a cloud of spiritual repellent. Beyond these common items, village priests and healers possessed knowledge of specific sacred plants. These herbs were often ground into pastes and rubbed on the skin as a protective ointment, or they were burned as incense to purify a home's atmosphere, driving out any lingering malevolent presence. The very architecture of a home could be a form of defense. Gaps under the roof or cracks in the walls were meticulously sealed with mud and resin, not just for comfort, but to eliminate the tiny entry points a Firefly could exploit. Special symbols carved into door frames or painted above entrances acted as spiritual seals. These were not random decorations, but ancient sigils of protection, their patterns believed to confuse the Adze or render it blind to the inhabitants within. When prevention failed and a family suspected an attack, more direct rituals were necessary. A village priest, a figure of immense spiritual authority, would be summoned. He might perform a cleansing ceremony, using chants, drumming, and the smoke of particular woods to drive the entity out of a person or a dwelling. In extreme cases, a ritual hunt for the witch controlling the Adze might be organized, seeking to break the pact at its source and free the community from its grip. These defenses reveal a profound understanding of the enemy. They show a people who refused to be passive victims, who used every tool at their disposal, from the botanical to the spiritual, to safeguard their families. It makes you wonder, in our own modern lives, what are the symbolic herbs and protective rituals we instinctively use to create a sense of safety in our own homes, to guard against the unseen threats we fear most? Identifying a true Adze attack required more than just noticing a sickness. It demanded a deep, intuitive reading of the spiritual atmosphere. A traditional priest or shaman would be called to a home where the air itself felt heavy and stagnant, where the laughter had died and a pervasive chill had taken root. His first task was diagnosis, a process far beyond physical examination. He might prepare a special herbal infusion, having the afflicted person drink it before observing their dreams or consulting the patterns of thrown sacred shells or bones. The signs were specific: a lingering red glow in the victim's aura, a recurring dream of a fiery insect, or a divination that pointed directly to a parasitic presence. Once the Adze was confirmed, the real battle began, a confrontation fought on an invisible battlefield. The priest would prepare himself through fasting, prayer, and ritual cleansing, adorning his body with white clay and protective symbols to shield his own powerful life force from the creature's hunger. The tools of this war were both simple and profound: a specially prepared gourd, Its interior, coated with sticky tree resin and potent herbal mixtures, served as the primary trap. Other accounts speak of a black bottle, sealed with a wax inscribed with binding symbols. The ritual itself was a high-stakes performance of spiritual authority, often conducted at the crossroads of night and day, dusk or dawn, when the veil between worlds was thinnest. The priest, surrounded by the family and often the entire village for collective spiritual strength, would begin to chant. His voice was not a plea but a command, a resonant invocation calling out the Adze by its true name, compelling it to reveal itself. Drums beat in a complex, hypnotic rhythm meant to disorient the creature and disrupt its connection to its human puppet or its witch master. The air would grow thick, the temperature would plummet, and the faint crimson glow of the firefly form might materialize from the shadows or even be forced out of the victim's body in a violent spiritual expulsion. The climax of the confrontation was a deadly dance. The priest had to lure the Adze toward the trap, using his own energy as a bait without being drained himself. He would challenge it, insult it, and break its will with words of power until it was confused and vulnerable. As the creature dove toward him in a final, desperate attack, he had to maneuver it precisely into the mouth of the gourd or bottle, slamming the lid shut the instant it crossed the threshold. The moment of capture was sealed with a shout of triumph and a final, binding incantation. But what happened next to the trapped entity? The fate of a captured Adze reveals a profound and surprising twist in this ancient battle between light and shadow. Capturing the Adze is only the beginning of the ordeal. The sealed gourd does not contain a simple insect, but a furious, conscious entity of pure hunger, and its imprisonment creates a new and dangerous relationship. The captor, often the priest who performed the ritual, now holds a vessel of immense potential and peril. One traditional belief states that a subdued Adze can be compelled to speak. In a twisted reversal of its parasitic nature, the creature can be forced to divulge secrets, answering questions about hidden treasures, the identity of the witch who controlled it, or even foretelling future events. It becomes a cursed oracle, its knowledge ripped from the shadowy realms it inhabits. Some legends go even further, suggesting that a truly powerful individual could bend the Adze to their will, not as a familiar for attack, but as a source of personal power. This granted boon might be enhanced vitality, protection from other supernatural threats, or a deep, intuitive understanding of herbal medicine and the spirit world. The captor essentially hijacks the creature's connection to the occult, siphoning a measure of its power for themselves, but this path is paved with spiritual corruption. Every use of the Adze's power, every secret learned, binds the captor more tightly to the creature's malevolent essence. It is a poison that feels like a gift. The captor might find their own dreams invaded by the Adze's hunger, their thoughts tinged with its predatory instincts. They could develop an aversion to sunlight or a craving for raw meat, slowly taking on the characteristics of the very monster they trapped. This is the moral compromise at the heart of the legend. To use the Adze's power is to accept a piece of its darkness into your own soul, blurring the line between hunter and monster. And the creature itself never accepts its fate. It waits, patient and seething, for any mistake, a moment of carelessness, a crack in the gourd, a forgotten binding symbol, and it will erupt forth with a vengeance far more personal and ferocious than its random hunts. It will remember who caged it, and its first target for retribution will be the one who dared to claim mastery over it. So you must ask yourself, if you held that sealed gourd in your hands, feeling the faint, angry buzz of the life inside, what would you do? Would you destroy it immediately, or would the temptation to ask it just one question prove too great to resist? The sealed gourd holds a dilemma faced by cultures across the world, a universal human struggle against the things that feed on us in the dark. The Adze is not an isolated monster. It belongs to a vast, shadowy family of vampiric entities, each one a dark mirror reflecting the specific fears of the people who created it, Placing the Adze beside its global cousins reveals what is truly unique about this West African predator. Consider the classic vampire of European folklore. Like the Adze, it is an undead creature that consumes life, often in the form of blood, but the European vampire is a corrupted human, a revenant that rises from its own grave to prey on its former family and neighbors. Its horror lies in the perversion of love and community, the idea that death itself cannot sever a malicious bond. The Adze, in stark contrast, was never human. It is an elemental parasite, a thing from the wild that chooses to wear a human shape as a disguise. Its terror comes from the outside, from the forest that encroaches on the village, not from the graveyard within it. Then there is the Asanbosom, another vampire from West Africa, found in the myths of the Akan people. This creature also dwells in the deep forest, but it could not be more different. The Asanbosom is a monstrous human-like being with iron teeth and hooks for feet, who hangs from the treetops to snatch up unsuspecting passers-by. Its horror is physical, brute, and immediate. The Adze's danger is subtle, psychological, and spiritual. It does not tear you apart with hooks, it hollows you out from the inside, leaving you alive but empty. Even the more modern chupacabra, the goat sucker of the Americas, shares a predatory nature. It attacks livestock, draining their blood and leaving a baffling mystery in its wake. Yet the chupacabra is largely a physical mystery, a bizarre creature of unknown origin. The Adze is deeply, intimately known. Its origins are woven into the relationship between humanity, witchcraft, and the natural world. This is the Adze's most defining feature, its profound and symbiotic connection to human sorcery. While a European vampire might create thralls, and a chupacabra acts as a solitary beast, the Adze exists in a cycle of use and corruption with witches. It can be a wild predator, but it can also become a weapon, a familiar directed by human malice. This transforms it from a mere monster of the wild into a manifestation of a social poison, the fear that your own neighbor could be using a supernatural force to destroy you. Its insectoid form is the final, masterful touch of genius in its design. A bat is already a creature of the night, but a firefly is a symbol of harmless beauty, a tiny lantern in the darkness. The Adze perverts that symbol. It teaches that the most profound dangers do not always come from the obviously monstrous, but from the beautifully familiar, twisted into a predatory lie. So the next time you hear a vampire story, ask what it truly fears. Does it fear the dead, the wild, or the betrayal of the living? The answer reveals the deepest shadows in the human heart. One story tells of a young mother named Afi, known throughout her village for her boundless energy and the joyful songs she sang while pounding yams. One evening, a strange, quiet man arrived at the village's edge, his eyes downcast and his movements oddly stiff. The very next night, as Effie slept beside her infant daughter, a firefly with a deep red glow drifted through a crack in the wall. It circled the sleeping child before settling on her tiny wrist. The baby did not cry out. In the days that followed, the child grew pale and listless, her lively gurgles replaced by a weak, constant whimper. Effie, once the heart of the village, became a ghost of herself, her songs silenced by a grief no healer could cure. The village priest was summoned. He saw not a natural illness, but a spiritual theft. He prepared a trap, a gourd smeared with the sticky sap of a sacred tree. That night, as he chanted and drummed, the red firefly was drawn from the child's very shadow. Compelled by the ritual to return to its master, it flew directly into the gourd, and the priest sealed it shut. The quiet stranger was found the next morning, slumped and lifeless outside his hut. The witch who had directed the Adze's hunger. The child recovered, and Effie's songs slowly returned, but the village never forgot the lesson. Trust must be earned, for the most dangerous predators are those who hide behind a human face, using our own compassion as a weapon against us. Another tale warns of the consequences of breaking a sacred taboo. In a different village, a man named Kofi grew envious of his brother's prosperous fields and large family. Consumed by jealousy, he sought out a disgraced sorcerer living deep in the forbidden part of the forest. He broke the community's oldest law, consorting with dark forces for personal gain. The sorcerer gave Kofi a small, intricately carved box. Inside, he said, was a spirit that would bring him everything he desired. All Kofi had to do was feed it a single drop of his own blood each new moon. For a time, Kofi's fortunes improved. His brother's crops failed, his own flourished, and he gained influence in the village. But the thing in the box demanded more. Soon, it was not a drop of blood, but a vial. Then it demanded the life force of others. Kofi, now trapped by his own ambition, began to send the entity, an adze he had unknowingly welcomed into his home, to feed on his neighbors' children. The village was soon shrouded in sickness and suspicion. It was only when a visiting priest, sensing the concentrated evil in Kofi's compound, confronted him that the truth emerged. The adze, grown powerful on stolen vitality, broke free from its box and its master. It did not flee into the forest. Instead, it turned on Kofi, draining him completely in a single, violent instant before vanishing. The story is still told to children, a chilling reminder that the shortcuts to power often lead through a darkness that will ultimately consume the one who walks the path. A final story speaks to the power of collective vigilance. An entire village noticed a sudden, unsettling change in their livestock. Goats were listless, their milk curdled, and chickens refused to lay eggs. At the same time, the children began having shared nightmares of a red light buzzing in their rooms. The elders did not wait for a tragedy. They acted as one. Every doorway was reinforced and sealed, every windowsill lined with crushed pepper and garlic. The women worked together, weaving new charms from specific grasses and hanging them over every sleeping mat. The men took turns on night watch, not with weapons, but with rattles and drums, their loud, unified noise creating a wall of sound to disrupt any subtle predator. One night, a guard spotted it, a crimson flicker moving with purpose toward the headman's hut. He shook his rattle and raised the alarm. Immediately, the entire village erupted. People poured from their homes, not in panic, but in a coordinated response, shouting, banging pots, and creating an overwhelming cacophony of human life. The red light wavered, flickered, and shot away into the forest, repelled not by a single hero, but by the unbreakable spirit of a community united. The lesson was clear. The adze feeds on isolation and secrecy, but it cannot stand against the bright, defiant light of a people who refuse to be afraid together. That crimson glow is a lie disguised as a beacon. The choice of a firefly is the myth's deepest stroke of genius, a perfect symbol of corrupted beauty. We instinctively see a firefly's light as a tiny marvel, a spark of innocence in a dark world. The adze perverts this completely. Its light is not a gift, but a trap, the ultimate false promise. This is the core irony, a creature of light that brings only spiritual darkness, a guide that leads you into danger, not away from it. In esoteric traditions across the world, light is not always pure. A flickering, unnatural glow can signify a wandering soul, a will-o'-the-wisp leading travelers into swamps, or a ghostly apparition. The adze's bioluminescence fits this pattern perfectly. It is a lure. Think of an anglerfish in the deep ocean, using a glowing bit of flesh to draw prey into its jaws. The adze operates on the same predatory principle. Its beautiful, hypnotic pulse is a deadly advertisement. It mimics the very thing a lost person might seek, comfort and guidance, only to deliver the exact opposite. Some interpretations go even further, suggesting that each pulse of its red light is not its own, but a fragment of a stolen soul, a captured life force briefly flickering in its grasp before being consumed. The firefly becomes a walking prison, its body a lantern displaying its gruesome trophies. This transforms a symbol of hope into a herald of profound loss. It forces us to reconsider everything we think we know about light and dark. True danger is not always found in the pitch black, where our senses are alert. The real threat often waits in the half-light, wearing the face of something beautiful and familiar. It asks an unsettling question about our own lives. How many of the bright, alluring things we chase are actually guiding us toward nourishment, and how many are simply the beautiful, deadly bait of a hidden predator? That beautiful, deceptive light ultimately shines on our deepest anxieties. We can view the Adze not just as a supernatural monster, but as a profound psychological metaphor, a creature born from the collective human fear of invisible threats. Its firefly form is the perfect embodiment of a world where a simple mosquito bite can lead to a deadly fever. In regions where malaria is a constant danger, the Adze myth gives a tangible, malevolent face to a microscopic killer. It personifies the terror of a sickness that arrives silently in the night, carried on insect wings, draining the life from a child with a swiftness that feels both random and cruel. The creature's specific targeting of the young makes this connection even more powerful, reflecting the ancient, universal dread of infant mortality. The Adze becomes the answer to a desperate, unspoken question: why does a healthy child suddenly waste away? The myth provides a narrative for the unexplainable, a villain to blame for a tragedy that otherwise has none. This fear extends beyond the physical body and into the social fabric. The Adze's ability to shapeshift into a human and walk undetected in the village speaks directly to the terror of social betrayal. In a tightly knit community, survival depends on trust. The idea that a newcomer or even a neighbor could be a predatory force in disguise taps into a primal fear of the outsider, the traitor in your midst. This creature weaponizes our need for community, turning the safety of the group into its perfect hunting ground. Its actions create a climate of suspicion where everyone is a potential enemy, mirroring the real-world devastation caused by gossip, slander, and ostracization. Have you ever felt a chill in a room full of people you thought you knew? That sensation of unseen danger lurking behind familiar faces is the emotional territory the Adze claims as its own. At its core, the myth is about the violation of the sacred space, the home. The Adze does not attack in the open wilderness. It infiltrates the one place you are supposed to be safe. Its method of entry, slipping through tiny cracks and gaps, symbolizes how vulnerability can seep into our most protected environments. This reflects a fundamental human anxiety, the fear that no matter how many locks we install or how high we build our walls, some threats are simply too small, too subtle to keep out. The Adze is the shape we give to those creeping dreads, the worry for a sick child, the distrust of a stranger, the gnawing sense that safety itself is an illusion. It asks us what cracks exist in our own modern lives, what tiny, glowing anxieties are we secretly afraid might slip through and steal our peace. That terrifying feeling of being pinned in your own bed has a name: sleep paralysis. You are awake, you are aware, but your body is utterly frozen, a prisoner to an invisible weight pressing down on your chest. In the thick silence of the night, a presence makes itself known, a malevolent shadow in the corner of your vision slowly approaching. Then comes the feeling of being drained, your very breath and energy siphoned away by something you cannot see. Modern science explains this as a glitch in the sleep cycle, a moment where the brain wakes before the body's paralysis mechanism disengages. But for the you people, this universal human experience was not a neurological misfire. It was a literal Adze attack. The myth provides a complete and chilling narrative for every symptom. The crushing weight on your chest is the Adze in its firefly form, having landed and begun to feed. The shadowy presence at the edge of your perception is its humanoid shape, watching and waiting. The profound exhaustion, the feeling of your vitality being stolen, is the creature actively consuming your life force. This cultural framework transforms a random, terrifying event into a story with a villain, a method, and a meaning. It gives a name to the formless dread. Across the globe, other cultures have done the same. In Newfoundland, the old hag visits people in the night, sitting on their chests. In Scandinavia, the Mara presses upon sleepers. These are all variations on the same theme, an entity that attacks when we are most vulnerable in our sleep. The Adze myth is simply West Africa's profound and specific answer to this shared human mystery. It asks us to consider if our modern explanations, while comforting in their logic, have caused us to forget an older, more instinctual truth. That the things which go bump in the night might not just be in our minds, but might be something with a name, a hunger, and a glowing red light. A colonial administrator's journal from the late 19th century describes the Adze with a tone of amused condescension. He writes of the native superstition surrounding a common firefly, a clear sign of a primitive mind unable to grasp the scientific realities of the natural world. This dismissive perspective was the rule, not the exception. European colonists and early anthropologists arrived in West Africa armed with their own frameworks of understanding, and the complex spiritual ecosystem of the people simply did not fit. They heard the stories of the vampire Firefly and immediately categorized it as simple folklore, a childlike fantasy to be recorded as a curious artifact of a lesser culture. In their writings, the Adze was stripped of its profound symbolism. They failed to see it as a representation of disease, social betrayal, or the dangers of forbidden power. To them, it was just a spooky story about a bug. This external gaze had a tangible impact. As colonial education and religion spread, these ancient beliefs were actively discouraged, often labeled as backward or demonic. The deep, nuanced knowledge held by priests and elders was pushed to the margins, preserved only in secret or within the most remote villages. The colonizers' skepticism created a rift, making it dangerous for younger generations to openly learn the old ways, threatening to sever the oral tradition that had kept the understanding of the Adze alive for centuries. The distortion went even deeper. Early anthropological reports often simplified the creature into a generic vampire, comparing it directly to the European model and ignoring what made it uniquely West African. They overlooked the critical connection to witchcraft, the symbiotic relationship between human ambition and the supernatural predator. In their accounts, the Adze became a solitary monster, not a tool wielded by human malice. This reduction erased the myth's function as a social warning, its role in regulating behavior and enforcing community trust. By forcing the Adze into a box it was never meant to fit, these outsiders diluted its power and misunderstood its true purpose. It makes you wonder how many other profound truths from cultures around the world were lost because someone looked, but did not truly see. Yet this ancient predator refused to be trapped in the past. The Adze has successfully migrated from the fireside tales of West Africa to the glowing screens of global popular culture, its myth evolving to haunt a new digital landscape. You can now find its essence woven into the fabric of modern horror films, where a swarm of glowing insects might not be a natural phenomenon, but a collective, vampiric intelligence hunting the protagonists. The creature's core trait, a beautiful light that hides a lethal secret, is a gift for visual storytellers. A film might not name the Adze directly, but the inspiration is clear, a deceptively lovely glow in a dark forest that suddenly turns predatory, luring characters to their doom. Video games have also embraced the Adze mechanics. Imagine playing a survival horror game where you are not fighting giant monsters, but a tiny, persistent threat. A crimson firefly might be a recurring enemy, one that saps your character's health and sanity if you don't seal the cracks in your safe house or use light-based weapons to drive it back. The Adze's weakness, its compulsion to count, could even become a clever puzzle element, where the player must scatter items to distract the entity and buy precious time. In literature, the myth has been expanded by authors of the African diaspora, who reclaim the narrative and explore its themes for a modern audience. Their stories might recontextualize the Adze, framing it as a metaphor for corporate exploitation, draining a community's resources, or for the spiritual emptiness of modern life. The creature's ability to possess its victims resonates deeply in tales about identity, loss, and psychological manipulation. Even music videos have drawn upon its striking imagery, using the juxtaposition of a beautiful, pulsing red light and scenes of decay to represent a toxic relationship or a hidden addiction. The global adaptation of the Adze often streamlines its more complex folklore. The intricate connection to human witchcraft might be simplified into a more generic curse, and the specific cultural protections like sacred herbs are often replaced with universal symbols like salt circles or holy water. This makes the myth more immediately accessible, but it also sands away its unique cultural texture. The Adze becomes another vampire in a world full of them, its distinct West African soul sometimes fading in the translation. This journey from oral tale to pop culture raises a fascinating question about the stories we tell. When a myth travels the world, does it gain power through its new audiences, or does it lose the very specificity that made it profound in the first place? So does the Adze still haunt the modern night? The belief is far from extinct. It has not vanished with the arrival of electricity and the internet, but has instead evolved, finding new spaces to exist within the complex landscape of contemporary West African life. In bustling cities like Accra and Lomé, you will find young professionals who dismiss the Adze as mere superstition, a folktale for children, yet that same person might hesitate before swatting a firefly with an unusually red glow, a flicker of ancestral memory causing a moment of irrational pause. The belief persists most strongly in rural villages, where the forest is still a tangible presence and the oral tradition remains a vital thread connecting generations. Here, elders speak of the Adze not as a myth, but as a real spiritual danger, a force that modern medicine cannot diagnose or cure. When a child suffers from a sudden, unexplained wasting sickness, the old explanations are often the first to surface. The language used has simply adapted. A village elder might not say an Adze is responsible, but will speak of a spiritual attack or a curse sent by a jealous rival. The function of the myth remains identical. It provides a framework for understanding misfortune that feels outside of human control. This is the Adze's surprising resilience. It has transitioned from a literal monster to a potent metaphor for unseen malevolence. Its role in cultural identity is now twofold. For some, it is a point of pride, a unique part of their heritage that distinguishes their culture in a globalized world. Storytellers and filmmakers draw upon it as a source of authentic African horror, reclaiming the narrative from the colonial lens that once dismissed it. For others, particularly within some Christian and Islamic communities, the Adze is discussed cautiously, sometimes framed as a demonic entity, its legend absorbed and recontextualized by new religious frameworks. The creature has become a shapeshifter in more ways than one, its meaning fluid, adapting to the beliefs of the person who tells its story. The Adze endures because it answers a timeless human need to give a name and a face to the formless anxieties that stalk us, whether in the deep forest or the deep corners of the modern mind. A village facing the Adze does not simply wait for the next attack. It mobilizes its spiritual defenses, enacting precise rituals passed down through countless generations. One of the most vital is the protective ceremony known as the sealing of the home, typically performed by a family under the guidance of an elder when a new child is born or a strange sickness has been noted. The ritual begins at the first light of dawn, symbolizing a fresh start and the banishment of night's shadows. The mother of the household prepares a special paste, grinding together garlic, fiery red peppers, and the leaves of the atsitsi plant, known for its purifying properties. As she grinds, she whispers prayers of protection, imbuing the mixture with her intention. The father then uses his fingers to carefully draw a continuous line with this paste over every doorway and windowsill, creating a potent aromatic barrier. Each line is not just a physical mark, it is a symbolic declaration that this home is a sacred space, its boundaries fortified against any parasitic force. Finally, a small gourd, hollowed and filled with specific protective herbs, is hung above the main entrance, acting as a spiritual filter that any malevolent energy must pass through before entering. This entire ceremony is a profound act of family unity, a collective statement that this home is defended by love and tradition, but when suspicion has already taken root, a more aggressive ritual is required to identify the threat. If a family fears one of their own has been targeted or possessed, they will seek out the village priest for a diagnosis. This is not a public event, but a quiet, intense gathering within the afflicted person's hut. The priest arrives carrying a small bag of sacred objects, a black cloth, a white chicken, and a calabash of water mixed with the ashes of a particular sacred tree. The room is sealed, and the only light comes from a single, small oil lamp. The ritual begins with the priest chanting in a low, rhythmic tone, calling upon ancestral spirits for clarity and vision. He then takes the white chicken and gently waves it over the body of the afflicted person from head to toe, a symbolic act of transferring any spiritual contamination onto the bird. The chicken is then set loose just outside the hut. Its behavior is the key. If it runs away squawking in terror, it confirms a malevolent presence has been attached to the victim. If it calmly pecks at the ground, the illness is deemed to be of a natural cause. To pinpoint the source, the priest may then take the black cloth and drape it over a bowl of the ash water, peering into its surface to scry for answers, seeking the flicker of a red light or the face of the witch controlling the adze. The most powerful and communal of all these practices is the village cleansing, an event that mobilizes the entire community after an adze has been captured or a series of attacks has ended. This is not a somber funeral, but a vibrant, loud expulsion of negative energy. As the sun begins to set, every single villager gathers in the central clearing, each person carrying a noise-making instrument, a pot, a drum, or simply two sticks to clap together. The priest, adorned in white clay and Kent cloth, stands at the center, holding the sealed gourd containing the captured adze. He begins a powerful, declamatory chant, listing the crimes of the creature and commanding it to leave their community forever. On his signal, the entire village erupts into a cacophony of sound, shouting, drumming, and banging their pots as they begin to move in a unified procession. They march to every boundary of the village, to every footpath leading into the forest, their collective noise creating a sonic wall that pushes any lingering negative spirits out of their space. The procession ends at a crossroads outside the village, a place of transition and endings. There, the priest smashes the sealed gourd against a specific rock, releasing the trapped entity into a place of confusion where it can no longer find its way back. The shattered pieces are then burned, and the ashes are scattered to the wind, a final, definitive act of purification. This ritual is the ultimate expression of community power, proving that the shared light of a united people is more than a match for the solitary, deceptive glow of the adze. From this shamanic viewpoint, the dense forests of West Africa are more than a physical landscape. They are a gateway to the spirit world, and the adze is no longer just a creature of flesh and chitin. It becomes an astral predator, a parasitic entity that hunts not in the material realm we see, but within the luminous, invisible dimensions of consciousness itself. When a shaman journeys into these non-ordinary realities, their awareness travels in what is often called an energy body or a spirit body, a subtle form that is interconnected with their physical health and vitality. It is here, in this vast and often unpredictable inner wilderness, that the adze finds its true hunting grounds. Imagine a traveler of the spirit, moving through a realm of swirling colors and profound visions, only to notice a single pulsing point of crimson light in the distance. To the untrained, it might look like a beautiful spirit guide or a fascinating mystery, but an experienced shaman recognizes the deception instantly. This is the astral signature of the adze, a predator drawn to the bright energy of a conscious traveler. The attack is not physical. The entity attaches its own energy field to the travelers, creating a parasitic cord that acts like a siphon. It begins to pull on the journeyer's life force, their D's Odo, draining the very energy that powers their spiritual excursion and sustains their physical body back home. The effects of such an encounter are felt on both sides of the veil. The shaman may return from their journey feeling inexplicably exhausted, disoriented, and emotionally hollow, as if the heart of their spiritual practice has been stolen. Back in their physical form, they might experience a sudden, lingering illness, a deep fatigue that sleep cannot cure, or a sense of spiritual apathy that makes meditation or prayer feel pointless. This is the real danger of the adze in esoteric practice. It does not just attack the body, it severs the connection to the sacred, leaving a practitioner spiritually malnourished and vulnerable to deeper despair. This perspective transforms the entire myth. The protective herbs hung over doorways are not just physical repellents, they are aids for creating a purified psychic space. The rituals performed by the village priest are not merely symbolic. They are advanced techniques for severing these astral attachments and recalling lost fragments of the soul. The adze in this light is a universal danger for anyone who ventures into altered states of consciousness without proper guidance or protection. It represents the very real risk of encountering forces that can feed on our spiritual light, leaving us diminished in both body and soul. So the next time you sit to meditate or explore the depths of your own mind, consider the ancient wisdom of the You people, for the most treacherous paths are not always made of dirt and stone, but of thought and spirit. This connection between the adze and spiritual depletion is a cornerstone of occult theory. The concept of psychic vampirism is not confined to West African folklore. It is a universal principle found in esoteric traditions across the globe. These entities are not physical beings in the way we understand them, but rather conscious energies that exist on the subtler levels of reality, often called the etheric or astral planes. The etheric plane is considered the blueprint of the physical body, a layer of vital energy that interpenetrates our flesh and bones. The astral plane is the realm of emotion, desire, and psychic interaction. An entity like the adze is believed to operate primarily on these invisible fronts. It attaches its own energy field to a person's etheric body, creating a parasitic link that acts like a spiritual straw. Through this connection, it siphons the life force, the very fuel that animates our physical form and empowers our emotional and mental states. This explains why a victim can be perfectly healthy according to medical science, yet feel utterly drained, listless, and emotionally hollow. The attack is happening one layer removed from the physical. The methods for protection from the adze are remarkably consistent with general psychic self-defense techniques taught in many occult schools. The use of pungent herbs like garlic and pepper is not mere superstition. In esoteric terms, these substances are believed to emit a vibration that disrupts and repels lower astral energies, effectively short-circuiting the parasitic connection before it can be established. Think of it as creating a firewall of disruptive frequencies around your personal space. The meticulous sealing of a home's cracks is a physical act that reinforces a psychic intention, the creation of a defined and protected sacred space where unwanted influences are not permitted to enter. This mirrors the common practice of visualizing a shield of white or golden light around one's body, a mental barrier that serves the same purpose. Even the adze compulsive counting can be seen as a flaw in its astral programming, a glitch in its predatory consciousness that can be exploited by a knowledgeable defender. These parallels reveal a profound truth. The legend of the adze is not an isolated fantasy, but a specific cultural expression of a universal occult understanding that our vitality can be targeted by forces we cannot see with our physical eyes. It asks a deeply personal question for anyone on a spiritual path. How diligently are you guarding your own energy, and what unseen attachments might already be feeding on your light without your conscious knowledge? This ancient story of the vampire Firefly did more than just frighten children. It fundamentally shaped an entire spiritual reality. The Adze myth embedded a powerful principle of spiritual cause and effect into the heart of West African consciousness. For the Yu people, misfortune was rarely a random accident. A sudden illness, a failed harvest, or a string of bad luck was often seen as the effect of a spiritual cause, and the Adze provided a clear, terrifying explanation. It taught that actions in the physical world have direct consequences in the unseen realm, and vice versa. If a child fell mysteriously ill, the community did not just see a sick child, they saw the potential result of a broken taboo, a neighbor's envy, or a witch's malice made manifest through the Adze. This worldview fostered a profound sense of personal and collective responsibility, encouraging people to live in harmony with spiritual laws because they understood that invisible forces were always watching and always reacting. The constant threat of the Adze became a powerful tool for reinforcing community cohesion. Its very method of attack, preying on the isolated and the vulnerable, made the strength of the group a primary defense. The myth implicitly warned against selfishness, jealousy, and social fragmentation. To be cast out from the community, to be alone, was to become easy prey. This encouraged a culture of mutual support, shared vigilance, and deep investment in the well-being of one's neighbors. Your family's safety depended on the watchfulness of the entire village, and their safety depended on yours. This created a social fabric woven tightly with threads of interdependence, where trust was not just a virtue, but a necessary strategy for survival against the things that hunt in the dark. Above all, the enduring presence of the Adze in the cultural imagination served as a constant daily reminder that the visible world is only a thin layer over a much deeper, unseen reality. It made the spirit world immediate and tangible. The night was not empty, it was inhabited. A firefly was not just an insect, it was a potential predator. A stranger was not just a newcomer, they could be a vessel for something ancient and hungry. This belief system prevented a purely materialistic view of the universe, keeping the door open to mystery, to the sacred, and to the awareness that much more is happening around us than our ordinary senses can perceive. The legacy of the Adze is a worldview where every shadow could hold a secret, every light could be a lure, and the community's shared spirit is the brightest light of all. A skeptic would point to the night air itself as the true culprit. Malaria, carried by the Anopheles mosquito, is endemic to West Africa, and its symptoms are a chilling mirror of an Adze attack. A child bitten by an infected mosquito will develop a high fever, become weak and listless, and can waste away with a speed that feels supernatural. Before the connection between mosquitoes and the disease was understood, what other explanation could there be for a sudden, debilitating illness that struck in the night than a malevolent, flying spirit? The profound lethargy and anemia caused by the parasite could easily be interpreted as a theft of life force, the body's vitality seemingly siphoned away by an invisible force. The Adze myth provided a narrative for this medical mystery, giving a name and a face to a microscopic killer. But what about the shared experiences, the villagers who all report seeing the same crimson light? Science offers another compelling answer in the form of mass psychogenic illness. In a community gripped by fear and suggestion, the power of belief can manifest physical symptoms. If everyone is talking about the Adze and a respected elder describes its red glow, it is not surprising that suggestible individuals might genuinely perceive that same glow in the darkness, their minds shaping what their eyes see. The collective anxiety becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, creating a shared hallucination that feels undeniably real to those caught within it. And then there is the experience of the attack itself, the feeling of a weight on the chest and a draining of energy. Sleep paralysis provides a near-perfect physiological explanation. This common phenomenon, where the brain wakes before the body's sleep-induced paralysis wears off, often includes hallucinations of a pressing weight and a menacing presence. Coupled with the cultural script of the Adze, This terrifying but natural event is instantly interpreted as a literal assault by the vampire Firefly. So from a purely rational standpoint, the Adze is a fascinating cultural construct built upon a foundation of misunderstood diseases, psychological phenomena, and the human brain's innate desire to find patterns and agents in random misfortune. Yet this skeptical analysis, for all its logic, fails to capture the entire picture. It explains the mechanisms but misses the meaning. The real power of the Adze does not necessarily lie in its literal existence as a biological entity, but in its enduring role as a profound metaphor for the very real, invisible forces that can indeed drain a person, a family, or even an entire community of its health and its spirit. Even after centuries of stories, the Adze leaves behind a trail of profound mysteries. What if this legend is not pure fiction, but a distorted memory of something that once was? Could a real historical event have sparked the first tale of the vampire Firefly? Some researchers suggest the myth might be rooted in encounters with a now extinct species, a bizarre, parasitic insect whose behavior was so unsettling it became woven into the supernatural. Others propose a darker human origin, that the Adze is a folk memory of a secret society or a cult that practiced blood rituals in the forest, their activities witnessed from afar and misinterpreted as the work of a shape-shifting monster. The Adze's specific connection to witchcraft fuels this theory, pointing to a time when rival spiritual practitioners may have used poisons or psychological manipulation to sicken their enemies, creating the observable symptoms of a supernatural attack. The true genesis of the Adze may be forever lost, buried under generations of oral tradition. This leads to another gap in our knowledge, the absence of a definitive ancient text. While the myth is old, most accounts are passed down verbally from elder to child, from priest to apprentice. What secrets might be held in undiscovered manuscripts or colonial archives, written by a missionary or an early traveler who recorded a version of the story now forgotten? A single, detailed account from 300 years ago could rewrite our entire understanding, perhaps describing a different form for the creature or revealing a lost ritual for its permanent destruction. The search for these primary sources continues, a quiet hunt through dusty records for a clue that might finally pin down the legend's elusive heart. But perhaps the most compelling mystery is not about the past, but about ourselves. Why does this particular myth, among thousands, persist with such power? Its endurance speaks to a fundamental human need to personify suffering. When a child dies from a fever that modern science can easily explain, the tragedy is a sterile, clinical fact. But when that same fever is the work of the Adze, the event becomes a story. It has a villain, a method, and a moral framework. This narrative provides a strange kind of comfort, transforming random, meaningless misfortune into a conflict with a defined and potentially defeatable enemy. The Adze gives a face to the formless dread of disease, a name for the anxiety of betrayal, and a shape to the invisible drain of despair. We are pattern-seeking creatures, and we will always conjure a monster in the shadows rather than stare into the empty dark. So the final, lingering question is not whether the Adze is real, but why we need it to be. What unspoken fears in your own life are so vast and shapeless that you might, in a quieter moment, be tempted to give them a name and a glowing red light? The Adze Unmasked reveals itself as far more than a simple bedtime story. We began with a lone firefly's crimson glow in the West African night, a deceptive beacon hiding a shape-shifting predator. We followed its path from a physical threat to children, to a psychic vampire draining spiritual vitality, and finally to a tool of human witches in a corrupt pact for power. This journey through folklore and esoteric practice shows us a creature of profound duality, a being that is both a monster of the wild and a mirror reflecting our deepest social anxieties. It is a story about the fear of invisible sickness, the terror of betrayal from within the community, and the dangerous allure of forbidden knowledge. The Adze endures because it is a perfect vessel, a myth that carries the weight of universal human fears, giving them a name, a shape, and a haunting red light. Its true power lies not in its literal existence, but in its function as a complex symbol, a timeless warning about the things that feed on us, both seen and unseen. So the next time you see a flicker in the dark, remember the Adze, and remember that the oldest stories are often maps to the deepest parts of ourselves. We would love to hear from you now. What vampire myths or similar legends exist in your own culture? Share your stories in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the shadows, subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest esoteric mysteries.